Hi everybody, Marcus Pipes Ups here, and been hearing a lot about, actually first off, Smoking Irish Flake, one of my co-ops. Been doing a lot of thinking about, been hearing a lot about Charlottesville, what happened and whatnot. Doing a lot of thinking about, what it means, everything that's been going on, everything, how it fits with everything else this year, from all the protests at the colleges, to, like, all the politics and stuff. To me, it seems like a natural progression. Sadly, if you look at the protests of, where Antifa is, burning stuff down because they don't like a speaker coming to a college. Of course, there's going to be pushback on the other extreme side that's probably actually smaller movement, but anytime there's an extreme push on one side, there's usually, it's the law of, it's Newtonian laws, physics, that, if you push one way, there's going to be an opposite effect pushing back. And that's really what we've seen, and there was a clash. To me, that's basically what Charlottesville was just the two extreme sides coming to get, meeting in the middle. And 90% of the population doesn't believe in either side, but the way it's being portrayed, you seem forced to take one side or another, which I'm not doing because I am not a white national. Nor am I one of those Antifa guys either that's, causing trouble all over the place. But I do believe in the freedom of speech on both sides. But what I've really been thinking about is the how we got here. As people in the West, specifically United States. And I think that's a fair question, especially for anybody that's, familiar with history at all. You can come up with a question like, something like, what makes a country, historically speaking? And yeah, a lot of people point out that there's usually, they're all usually white or black or Asian of persuasion. But if you go deeper than that, there is there's a common belief structure and common principles that tend to be shared by everyone in that society. Part of it's cultural, part of it is religious, part of it's just, common myths and archetypes that you try to be. And really, historically speaking, a country is more than borders or race or any one of those things. It's all of them together and come to make a country or a people. So I think that's, something that's been lacking in the West, and especially, I can attest for the United States. I can't speak for, Western Europe or Australia. But over the last 100 years, I think about when the country was founded. The founding fathers. What did they believe in? And most of them had grown up, in the Christian faith. Whether they believed it themselves or not, that's a matter of debate that I'm not getting into. And they shared a common principles, because religion isn't just a set of stories or a set of arbitrary beliefs. It's a moral underpinning of who you are as a person. And that's what religion is to society. It is its morality and moral code, if you will. And in the West, it's been mostly Christianity for the last, several hundred years, if not the last 1,000 years. And it's really gone away just in the last, couple hundred. I'm not saying everyone needs to be a Christian or anything else. I'm just saying that I think we need to have respect for, how we got here and why things seem to be falling apart in part. We've never replaced anything, and we do have, our own mythology and myths in the United States. We're just not teaching it to our children. Think about like even when I was growing up, I was, watching old Disney cartoons, about Paul Bunyan, and, hearing stories about Paul Bunyan, Casey Jones, John Henry is a good one, and, these are American heroes, even if the stories about them, were blown out of proportion. That's not the point. The point is that they're archetypes that you strive to be. It says something about the human spirit in these stories. That the more common nihilist view that has been prevalent the last, several decades, I'd say, or seems to be prevalent, just can't grapple with the same way these old stories, these archetypes. I mean, there are Apollo, are, Hades and Jupiter. These are our stories that we haven't been passing on, and I think that's a part of why we're getting to the point where we are at each other's throats. Because we don't share a common ideal anymore that's articulated in that way. We took out the Christian underpinnings in the West and didn't replace them with anything, even though we do have these great stories that show great archetypical human spirit, and the founding fathers, the stories I just mentioned, even people like General Patton and General MacArthur. World War II, just the stories that built up around these men show us how we should act in the world. And that's the point of an archetype, is to have an ideal that you strive for as an individual and as a people as well. And we no longer share a common identity. And that's been pushed by people, I think, on both sides. You can even look at stories like King Arthur and, old world stories as well, and it, show the progression into how the West built up over time and what values we held dear, and the values that we've kind of let go, sadly, in my opinion. I think over the last 100 years or so, I think we've obfuscated our responsibility as a people to pass that on to the next generation. That feeling of, we are one people. Even when somebody comes from another country into this country, they should, we should be telling them, this is who we are as a country. And you need to not give up your own individual identity, but find your place within this structure that's already built. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people want to build the structure around individual groups. But you have so many groups that doesn't really work, because you'd have to, it's like building a house by building individual rooms. Where you build this room, and then you build a room beside it, and then you build a room over it. That's not going to be a very strong structure. How you build as a house is you build the outside framework first. And then once that's done, then you go back and build the rooms. And that's how a country is built, is you have the overarching structure, which is a common identity and a common, and I'm not talking about race, I'm talking about stories and ideals. That's the common framework that a country is built on. And any group for that matter, not just a country, but also a club, like the YTPC. It has a common identity in being a pipe smoker. That is our overarching principle for this, section of YouTube. And then you have to build your own room within that overarching structure. And I think that's the point a lot of people miss. Is, yes, we have a country and a common identity within that, and everyone needs to build their own room within that framework in order for this country to work. And I think this is how we got here, is people miss that. And they think you build a house by building individual rooms. But it's just my opinion, I guess. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And sorry it's a little bit longer video, but it's a big subject, and I could keep going on it, but oh well. Talk to you guys later. See ya.